Okay then, so just another little video that I found that I can talk about. Let me just get my shit together. Right, that should go there. Okay, so we've got a Conservative here, Senator Corey, who will be talking about a few things in the Senate. The Green Party, yes, Haina, Tenno. Yeah, the Greens are not as left-wing as they could be, but they are the most left-wing we've got, well, sort of. The most left-wing major, but not, most important party. There's like most countries, there's like two major parties and then a few smaller parties and then like really, really small parties and independents and all that. So, yeah, the Green Party are not a major party, but they are not a small party. They are quite good. They obviously care about the environment, and all that jazz. I don't keep up to date with them exactly, but, it is what it is. Anyway, so we've got here Senator Cory Bernardi, who is from the One Nation Party. The One Nation Party are a far-right party, headed again by, I'm going to call it out here, Pauline Hanson, who was a Nazi, anti-immigration, anti anything to do with culture, anti-Aborigines, who were here way before she was, and all round just a bad egg, just a bad egg. So I'll just get started on the video, and let's see what he says, Mr. Cory Bernardi from the One Nation Party.
All of the Australian Greens senators in this place who believe that it's not appropriate to celebrate
This is not Cory Bernardi. He will show up.
Australia Day on January the 26th, and we strongly, the Australian Greens, strongly support the actions that both Yarra and Darebin City Councils took and their decision to no longer hold citizenship ceremonies on that date. Income. I haven't run into this level of petty vindictiveness since I didn't get an invitation to a birthday party when I was in grade 3.
I want to thank Senator McKim for his illumination.
That's Cory Bernardi. So they're talking about, this is 2 years ago, but it was recently another issue that was brought up again. So Australia Day is on the 26th of January. It is a national day, a public holiday that celebrates when the English basically, if I'm not mistaken, when the English basically landed on on the Australian shores. If I'm not mistaken, I'll just double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is about. Yes, arrival of the first fleet. So, so the Green Party and some other people have brought up that Australia Day, much like, say, Columbus Day in the US, is a little bit racist, because Yeah, Tenno. Australia Day is basically a day celebrating the invasion of the original Australian peoples. And people have brought up that, maybe it shouldn't be called Australia Day, maybe it should be moved. But traditionally it has always been called Australia Day, celebrated on the 26th of January when, the English fleets landed on the eastern Australian shores, because other nations had landed on Australia before. I believe it was the Dutch in Western Australia, if I'm not mistaken. But, generally the fleet arriving in the eastern shores of Australia now, where Sydney is considered, the first, landing and colonisation, etc. So obviously, as I said, people have brought up it shouldn't be a day that should be celebrated, because it's not a good day for the Aboriginal peoples. They don't have a day, that is celebrated in Australia. The Australian flag, for example, does not even acknowledge the First Peoples. The Aboriginal people of Australia have their own flag, red, yellow and black. Black for the people, red for the land, and yellow, I believe, for the sun. Which obviously, it's so much prettier, so much more interesting than like the usual, UK Southern Cross flag and all that stuff. Anyway, so let's get back to the video. Cory Bernardi from the Conservative Party. He is not happy that people are attacking Australia Day. Let's go from there.
Speech, because it explains a lot. Who would have known that the anger and the hatred towards one's own country manifests itself in being excluded from a 3-year-old's birthday party? I have to tell you, Madam Deputy President, that Senator McKim might not have been welcome as a 3-year-old. There's many birthday parties he wouldn't be welcome at today, because he carries on against the national interests of this country.
National interests being pro-white, anti-brown, anti-Aborigines. Let's go from there.
And the simple fact that he's dressed this up as some racist debate, and those who disagree with him are guilty of some racist hate speech, tell you about the evil that lurks within, the trauma.
And imagine that is an empty room that he is basically speaking to, all because he got extremely angry over someone not being happy about Australia Day. And not just someone, but a lot of people, like a lot of Australians who are not pro-Anglo-Saxon are not happy about Australia Day. I don't really celebrate it. I celebrate my mother's birthday the day after. So it's a public holiday, whatever.
The torment that must be driving this pernicious behaviour that is just about destroying and tearing down the things that are meant to celebrate and unite us as a nation. One of the things
unite who? The comments on this video are boomer drivel, by the way, but besides the point.
Things I say as a Conservative, we have built institutions and things have evolved over centuries, in this country, over many generations. And they've evolved for a particular reason, to bring people together, to ensure there is the maximum civil society and the maximum freedom available.
Freedom for white people, because the Aborigines have shorter life expectancy, higher rates of mortality, higher rates of addiction, higher rates of unemployment, higher rates of discrimination, but unity.
And what I note is those on the progressive agenda, like Senator McKim, hate those institutions because they claim it oppresses everyone else and they want to tear them down. What they're good at is ripping down things and destroying things, but they are not good at building them. They've got nothing to replace.
Destroying. The language he uses here, he's quite emotional about Australia Day.
The Greens call themselves the Global Green Movement. Their former leader, the person who they idolise, who, by the way, supported coal-fired power over the Franklin Dam, the person they idolise and adore and revere is the person who said there should be one world government. And yet here they are.
Hell yeah, one world government. That was former leader of the Greens. Hang on, I forgot his name. I think it was Bob or something, Bob Brown or something. I have to look it up because... Bob Brown, yes. I think that's who he's talking about, unless he's talking about Richard Di Natale, who, it's possible. But Bob Brown was the leader of the Greens Party for a really, really long time. He pushed the party up and over so many hurdles. Himself being a gay man, a lot of hurdles right there as well. I think that's who he's talking about. I'm not 100% sure because, I didn't, take, total, interest in politics years ago when Bob Brown was leader. So I just know about things after the fact. I think that's who he's talking about. And man, Corey, do you really get angry? Do you really get angry about the Greens Party not liking something that you love? And yeah, Teno, I'm trying to look up what he's talking about, the whole coal mine thing, the coal... If it's either Richard Di Natale or Bob Brown, but I think that's why people laughed at him in there, but never know.
Rights and the roles of councils. They hate councils unless they're stacked full of leftists and Greens. And what a coincidence! Haven't we got a council or two that fulfil that description here? But it is absolutely trite and pathetic for Senator McKim and the Greens to drive some sort of wedge into our national
I mean, obviously he's speaking to just one leader in one state, but his point is that it is, this hatred of Australia Day is somehow driving a wedge into Australian citizens. Really does not put into perspective what's really happening in Australia. The Conservative Party have been turning back all kinds of, asylum seekers and refugees and not letting them in, and the ones who do get in are put into detention centres, is what they're called, for years and years and years. And then there's also... oh God, I've lost my train of thought. It'll probably come back to me. Never mind.
Psyche, but on the basis that some extremists who have captured these two councils are pursuing their goal.
Extremists.
I mean, let's have a look at this. The City of Yarra Council covers Richmond, Collingwood and Fitzroy suburbs in inner Melbourne. The City of Yarra councillors comprise, lo and behold, 4 Greens councillors, 2 ALP councillors, 2 independents and 1 from the...
The city and state he is talking about, Melbourne, which is in the state of Victoria. Victoria is a highly progressive state. Think of it for any US people watching. Victoria here is kind of like California over there. So he has highlighted the fact that a progressive state is headed by progressive parties, which really itches his pants, man.
Socialist Alliance. Pretty hard to pick them all apart, actually. This is left-wing nonsense. that is propagated by the far extreme left that is so damaging to all the things that have made this country what it is today. Now, the Darebin City Council, of course, later considered a similar motion at the behest of its mayor, Greens councillor Kim LeCurf, or LeCurf, I'm not sure, but anyway. Darebin covers the suburbs of Northcote, Coburg and Reservoir, and its council is composed of 4 Greens, 3 Independents and 2 ALP councillors. Absolutely representative of the Australian people, I can assure you. Now, more
yes, it is representative because we have compulsory elections. Everyone who is registered to vote must vote lest they incur a fine. So, yes, that is a very good representation of Australians. Now, I will admit, we have a Conservative Party in power right now who are absolutely crap. I'm hoping they will get voted out in a few days. But they were voted in because of the opposite party, the Labor Party, and their indecision and their leader changing, which, funnily enough, the current Conservative Party, Liberals, have changed leaders 3 times since they've been in power, 3 or 4 years ago. So, again, Australian politics, we must remember that everyone who is registered to vote, it is compulsory to vote. So yes, anything you see in politics usually is a good representation of the Australian people. Just saying. That's why, there are some very remote places where, for example, One Nation Party are becoming popular and voted in because those places are conservative, racist, right-wing, etc.
Council, of course, in Melbourne Suburban North in mid-September became the 3rd council to abandon Australia Day. Abandon the day that you celebrate us becoming a country, effectively. The day that European settlement started the establishment of this country as we know it today.
Yes, I mean, people are already mocking him in there. I really needn't say much because, what he's saying is, pro-white rhetoric, basically. He is in the not in the One Nation Party. He's in the Australian Conservatives Party, which is probably hand in hand with the One Nation Party, allegedly.
Hey, but Greens councillor and Deputy Mayor Samantha Ratnam, her motion prevailed 7 votes to 4, to which the Greens promptly rewarded her this week by rushing her into the Victorian Legislative Council to further undermine the Australian Constitution to replace resigning Greens leader Greg Barber. Now, what I find extraordinary is that this person was installed into the council, has no political experience outside of being a mayor, but because of her diligent work was made leader of the Greens in Victoria.
There had to be a reason there. I didn't quite catch the name. Anyone could probably fact check this stuff. He's probably just spouting, conspiracy theories right
there.
No
political experience necessary. It says all you need to know. It's the ideology, it's the ability to carry the Marxist and Green agenda right through the...
There it is, Marxist Green agenda. Drink every time he says that.
The institutions, and the more you wreck, the more havoc you cause, the more you destroy, the more you are rewarded under the Greens program. It's not only in Western Australia and...
He babbles on so much that a lot of what he says is cut into small sections into an 11-minute, 30-second long video, or 11-minute, if you don't count his opposing speaker or whatever. So, yeah, he must have babbled on that much that they just cut out and put in, presumably to them, the good bits. Are these the good bits?
Victoria. In my own state of South Australia, we've got this headline-seeking virtue signalling council called the City of Marion Council. And when a councillor there moved to abandon Australia Day.
Virtue signalling, by the way.
2. Not one other councillor, I'm pleased to say, seconded that motion. So you had one person who loathes our country so much and couldn't even find that support. Now, more councils and councillors are sounding out their ratepayers about what to take on this issue. And this is how the Greens' modus operandi operates. They make it untenable for people to have an alternative point of view. And we saw that today with Senator McKim, who is still lamenting not being able to blow out the candles at a 3-year-old's birthday party.
He's really going on about the 3-year-old's birthday party. Did he have his own experience? Is this sort of, projecting here? Because he keeps coming back to that. It's really interesting.
And he wants to call everyone with pejorative names and terms, such as hate speakers, for speaking up for Australia Day.
Hate speech. Okay.
A racist hate speech for defending Australia Day. That's what we heard.
Well, they're not wrong. If you keep going on about your pro-white agenda, then they're not wrong.
Heard in the Senate. This is extremism writ large, and they dare to call others extremists and radicals. And these people are getting hold of inner city councils. They're getting hold of institutionalised power, which they are using against the national interest.
I mean, like I said before, voting compulsory generally means whoever gets voted in, people want them voted in, generally.
The basis of this issue and this division lies firmly with the Australian Greens. It's cashing in, if you will, on the nonsense that is growing out of parts of America and to a lesser degree the United Kingdom, where the political left, the socialists, the communists, the cultural Marxists want to rewrite history, erase their heritage and their past because suddenly they've determined that it causes offence.
I mean, this is from 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. And around that time, if I'm not mistaken, for example, because he's mentioned the US, in the US, people were saying, let's tear down Confederate symbols of victory or symbols of Confederate people, statues, etc. From my knowledge, the Confederates wanted slavery and lost the Civil War. So for Cory Bernardi to go on about erasing national pride and all that just because Australia Day is something he freaking has a raging boner about. I mean, you know what? Well, you don't know what my thought process is, but what I'm saying here, the common thread here is that he keeps saying that the invasion of the Australian continent by the white people should be a matter of national pride when it should actually be a matter of national shame, because it is a shame. And the persecution and the struggle that the Aboriginal people have gone through in the past, they continue to struggle through today, and he refuses to acknowledge that. And I wonder why. Because white pride or whatever. Australia Day is really important.
Or in Australia, we're seeing people complaining about statues that have been there for decades all of a sudden and demanding they be covered up or demanding that the plaques be replaced. And lo and behold, who's behind that? It's the same cultural ideology.
I mean, need I say more?
That has infected the Greens Party and is leaking out into other sections of society. Australia's history is what it is. Like every country, there are imperfections.
Okay, no one is saying, he's saying Australian history, it is what it is. No one is saying it's not what it is. No one is saying to completely erase it, and this is a lot of what right-wing people here in Australia, as they do in the USA, is that we're trying to erase history. We are not. We're trying to elevate the facts. The fact is that Australia Day continually commemorates an invasion of a people and the genocide of a people, okay? And they don't want to acknowledge that because feelings or something. I don't know, man. I come from immigrants, okay? But we're not like the invaders, because the invaders came here and invaded. Immigrants come here to find a better life. We're not here to invade. Of course there's a difference. But, you know, these white Anglo-Saxon descendants of the invaders, they really want to preserve their pride. They really do.
There are things that we all wish didn't happen, but they go together, just like in all our individual lives. There are things we regret and we wish we hadn't done. There are things that we wish we had done and taken action when we shouldn't have. But they go to making you the person that you are today, just like our history, like it or lump it, goes towards making us the country that we are today. We cannot erase that history. It's not about atoning for it. It is about getting on and making sure.
He doesn't want to atone, and his party doesn't want to atone for history and horrible things that have happened in the past. Atonement is kind of incredibly necessary in Australia. That I believe it was it was our Labour Prime Minister, God, I forgot his name, the guy who looked like Harry Potter. God, I have to look it up because I've got such crap memory. I think Rove McManus made skits about it. Kevin Rudd, that's right. Okay, so Kevin Rudd, I think, was one of the first prime ministers, if I'm not mistaken, to officially, which is a tiny act, officially say sorry to the Australian Aboriginal peoples. I think it was something called Reconciliation Day. I'll have a look because, my God, so Reconciliation Day, we do have a date for that. It's the 27th of May, which is probably, it's a holiday only in one Australian state, which is the ACT, Australian Capital Territory, which is where our government is. But I believe it has to do with reconciliation, atonement of the Aboriginal peoples. You know, why don't we just have that day instead of Australia Day? Because it recognises a lot. Hang on, I'll just have a quick look at it. Celebrate Indigenous history and culture in Australia. Foster reconciliation, discussion and activity. So that day, that week is actually coming up. In May, in a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. It is like the Reconciliation Week is kind of like a countrywide thing, but Reconciliation Day is only really publicly a holiday in one state. So it marks, apparently, if I'm reading correctly, the referendum in Australia in 1967 allowing, if I'm not mistaken, allowing Aboriginal people, recognising them, if I'm not mistaken. Hang on, let's have a look. Okay, I should probably do a video on that. There's so much history that I don't know or don't remember, and I should know and should remember, and so should a lot of Australian people, because it's incredibly important, and this has to do with Mabo, Eddie Mabo, an Aboriginal elder, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it has to do with all that kind of cultural history. You know, it's kind of like the civil rights movements in the US. We kind of had them in the 60s as well here in Australia. Anyway, I ranted on for too much. Let's continue with the video.
We can move forward together. You do not do that by ripping the country apart as the Greens are seeking to do. Mm-hmm. People are right to question the desires of people that are intent upon destroying the institutions that help to make us what we are today. And it comes back to the agenda of the Greens, burled by former Senator Bob Brown.
Bob Brown, there we go. That's who he was talking about.
Who spoke to fellow Earthians.
Sorry.
He said we hadn't been
That's who he was talking about. I was right. So he was talking about former leader Bob Brown, who was not the last leader, but the one before that, who was the leader for a really long time, like decades. Yeah, there you go.
visited by aliens because they didn't like what we were doing to the planet down here. He actually did begin a speech by saying, fellow Earthians, on his approach to one world government.
We should bring Bob Brown back, honestly. One world government, what a fucking genius. How did I not realise that sooner?
Where everyone gets one vote. Well, you know what, the 16 million people, or 20-odd million people in Australia wouldn't get too much of a say.
There's about over 25 million people in Australia now. Man, he's really behind on information and facts.
In that one world government that the Greens so desire. They want governance by the elites. They believe that they know better than everyone else, and they can virtue signal and they can pursue things without being critically assessed. You know, there are many Aboriginal Australians that I know that are perfectly happy with.
Oh my god, he's doing the thing. I know lots of Aborigines who are happy with their place. Cool, mate. Good for you for knowing at least one or two black people in your life.
With Australia Day where it is. It just seems there is an extreme element amongst them that are intent, once again, on ripping into whatever celebration there is and using it as a cause for division. I make no bones about it. Australian Conservatives wholeheartedly and 100% support Australia Day.
I mean, yeah, we know.
And this is not to gloss over our history. This is not to recognise that, you know, our history has highs and lows, but we have evolved, we have moved together as a nation to become the country that we are today. It is the best country in the world.
Man. Corey Bernardi is so cool.
As far as I'm concerned. Yes, we have some challenges, but the challenges are not the 26th of January. The challenge...
That's part of the challenges, and if he's going to be a reductionist here and say one problem is more important than another, I've got news for you, mate. All problems are problems, no matter how small they are. Just saying.
Challenges are the fact that too few people are prepared to make a contribution to this country in a financial sense, which is leaving people in this place.
Ooh, financial contributions, you say? Interesting.
To make decisions that we are leaving to future generations to sort out. I regret that part of the problem is the fragmentation of this extreme leftist agenda that says they know best and that they can govern better than individuals can manage their own affairs.
What is he even saying right there? He's just made a lot of contradictions right there. What the hell, Corey? You think that was going to slip by me, huh?
That is the totalitarian nature of the
totalitarian drink.
Greens. That is the big problem confronting our country. Days like Australia Day, days like Christmas, days...
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Christmas. Mate. What the fuck are you talking about?
Like Easter and our regular festivities and our tradition.
What are our regular festivities? He's mentioned Christmas, Easter, Australia Day. I wonder what other days he celebrates. Does he celebrate Reconciliation Day? He could just say he's not from the ACT, but, you know, shouldn't he? Does he celebrate Ramadan, Hanukkah, Eid? I can't think of any others. You know, Orthodox holidays. Does he observe them? Does he even acknowledge them? Why is he mentioning the ones that pertain only to him?
Are the things that bind and build culture together. The Greens and their acolytes have no interest in perpetuating the culture that binds together.
You know, it's interesting hearing from a white conservative talking about things that bind our culture. You know, the people who really brought culture after you guys wiped out the original culture, almost wiped out, the people who brought culture after the colonizers and invaders are immigrants. And I know what conservatives feel about immigrants.
To destroy. They want to tear down the things that make this country good so that they can reinvent it in their neo-Marxist image. It is an absolute
Neo-Marxist, there it is again, drink.
disgrace, Madam Acting Deputy President, that Senator McKim uses his democratic right to trash our country in this place.
Well, you know, you're using your democratic right to trash everyone else in this place, so, I mean, no one gets rights or everyone gets rights. It's that simple.
He's meant to be better than that. He should be better than that. He's still carrying the internal grievance and the hatred that he has for other people because he wasn't included and invited to a birthday party.
Oof, there it is, that birthday party. I mean, I swear Corey is projecting. He has to be. He keeps mentioning it. You know, it was used as a metaphor once.
As a 3-year-old. This is a man with a serious psychological chip on his shoulder. He shouldn't be carrying it in this place.
Isn't that lovely? Go ahead and subscribe to conservatives. So what did we learn today? Well, you know, Australia Day was defended by a conservative because reasons. Tearing up the country, neo-Marxism, virtue signalling, and I have one black friend. Well done, Corey. That'll be it for now because honestly, I cannot believe that shit. Thank you all for attending my stream again.